Thank you. Could I invite the speakers on stage, please? Kembo Chanala. Kembo Uganamgil. We have Tashotashi Omo, please. Secretary for a very important development sector. And we have Tash Song Rinze. I'm going to try and keep it very simple. We've not actually had discussions. Oh, sorry, Devansh. You've had your say so, but very important, very nicely put together. So that's, it'll just be, I would like to very briefly, maybe, I think sometimes we take development to be very, take it seriously and maybe put a head into it when you're drawing up plans and programs. But what about the heart? And so those are some of the things, the head and heart together, the connect. There has to be a conspiracy between the head and heart for things to work in an exciting and a spontaneous manner that is meaningful, intelligently so, but meaningful nevertheless, because that's when purpose comes into play. And without purpose, we've heard from previous speakers that if you do not have the sense of mission, a purpose of being able to serve, make your life useful, then what are you doing in furthering development or any other things in life? And so with the panelists, we hope to explore a little bit more on these. We would like to keep the panelists' viewpoints maybe to about 3-4 minutes each, and then we'll start with Kembo Gila. Palewe, we come this side since we've already heard Devanshi's presentation. And we would like to open this up more as an interaction with the participants here, because all of you have come from long distances. I'm sure you have lived truths that you'd like to share also, and questions for the panelists. Thank you.
Last one. Thank you, Amchimi. First of all, I'd like to take Kuzangpo to all my guests. I'm grateful to the Gyomcho and Diana for inviting as a panel. I don't know about the heart and brain. It's more biological. I think we are more groomed in understanding what is body and mind. And I'll try to focus more on body and mind. Before that, I just want to even share in 1986, fourth King Jim Singh Gyomcho, when called a group of young school-going boys to join the monks. I mean, it's been almost 4 decades now. I'm one of them who was serving in a monastery in the country. And that was the vision when we talk of His Majesty's in development, wisdom, inspirations. So that's been put in our mind till now. Then I thank to His Majesty for giving us, nurturing us up to this day. So to serve the country, to serve the people, and serve the central monastic body. And basically, inner development, it's been a very common language that we spiritual people use to lay people, finding the truth, reaching the blessing. But very simple question. Inner development is nothing but an inspiration to understand where you are, where you want to go. And in Buddhism, we have a very technical language called Do, which means refuge. I take refuge to Buddha. I take refuge to Dharma. I take refuge to Sangha, which means, moment when they refuge, it means that you have a problem. You are weak, or you are not enlightened. Or other way, we call you are Semchen, which means you are sentient being, and you want to become Buddha. And yesterday I talked to Andrew, and Andrew was saying, Gandhiji said that enlightenment means sharing. That definitely, enlightenment means sharing. After becoming enlightened, what are you going to do? He was wondered, just stay like that, and it's no worth being enlightened. It's true, Andrew. To become enlightened, you have to go this process, and then you have to benefit all sentient beings. Whether you put into account animal and other sentient beings is a different thing. Definitely, we always plan and make policies in our life, in our religion, on the human beings. So we talk the human beings. Refuge means you're not enlightened. I take refuge to Buddha means, in very English language, I want to become like you, gentleman, Sakyamuni, because you seem to be very good. You seem to be potential. You seem to be compassionate. You seem to be loving, kind. So that is the thing that development means. In development, again, you have heard of these very simple advices by your parents, by ancestors, by your teachers, by spiritual things. Gyawachu, 10 wholesome actions. 3 by the body, 4 by the speech, 3 by the mind. These are the few things you have to understand. These are the thing, daily development you need to do, changes in the body. In the sense, abstaining from killing. When I say killing means like violence nowadays. Abstaining from sexual misconduct, whether it is, it may depend on culture to culture, but definitely it's not good, it's not healthy. And then abstaining from, what call that? Killing, sexual misconduct, and then stealing. So this is the basic things, this is the grandfather's advice. You don't need a great guru with a big turban and yellow dresses or orange dresses, sadhus to advise you. This is your mother gives you. This is what the Tarayana is giving to every corner of the world. That's why I was explaining to Andrew yesterday. The Tarayana reached to every corner of the world. And now it's a transformation to next generation. He was talking of technology. That is right. It's a right time now. Because Aji Gyaltsab Cho has brought that one generation up to this stage. Now next generation, you're bringing the technology, educations, civilizations, such things. That's why we are also being a part of development. So you have to understand that thing. The 4 things, your example, you're talking about speech, you're talking of mind. I think we have to be very simple in practicing, not even a religion. We don't talk religion. Let's talk inner development. That's much better, because when you put the word religion, spiritual, then it becomes very complicated in your mind. That you think that one ritual is there, one thanga is there, one mala is there, one guru is there. So it makes so complicated for you to practice. So in the beginning, I don't think you need such things. In the beginning, I think you need a good advice. That's why that Madam was talking of progressing, education. So these are the basic things. The monastic, Central Monastic is, as our secretary was saying, Central Monastic is doing that work. That's our responsibility. We wear monk robe. When you practice, you don't have to become monk. Don't even imagine to become monk. To be good, you just be a good human being. What work you have, what you have, what type of relations you have, with that, you try to make development. That makes much peace and happiness. Happiness, peace is it depends on person to person. Don't think peace and happiness is a very permanent, which we can grab from the store or one formula of practices. It's not like that. It's a daily practices. So I think I don't want to take much time. I'll have more explanation in next session. Thank you, Amchimi.
Thank you, Khenpo, for starting the conversation on the mind-body, balancing the need for that as well. If it's okay with the panelists, could we just do a quick, roughly 3-4 minutes, and then we'll see how far we've progressed, and if we've made good enough substrata, then we could ask questions from the floor. If not, we'd do another round of short sessions. Tasho?
Your Majesty, distinguished guests, it's such an honor and humbling moment for me to be part of this very enlightened discussion, rather, after listening to a very profound address by Her Majesty and also other distinguished speakers. I think there is very little for me left to speak about GNH. I think it's a given that we all have imbibed into our daily lives. So perhaps to do justice to why I am here, I would like to talk at two levels. One at the personal level, and second, since I come from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Employment, which actually encompasses a lot of the economic development, social aspects. So let me try to share something along that line. On the personal note, I would like to join my young colleague who earlier shared how he is a living GNH. So am I. To me, development means having to get up early in the morning, breathing fresh air, being very much surrounded by lush green vegetation around, and knowing that I'm going into the community where I'm being showered with loads of love, affection, and care. So this is what I live every day. So then I go back, every morning I drive from home to the office. Every day I feel so lucky and blessed to be the citizen of Bhutan. And who do I thank? Of course, our leadership, our leaders. And particularly so in this conference, this is actually dedicated to His Majesty the Fourth King, who was the architect of GNH. I go back every single day feeling how I live GNH every day. And now me living in GNH is not enough. This has to be passed down onto the next level. Institutionally, this is very much captured, starting from our Constitution, where Article 9, actually, of the Constitution stipulates that government, the state shall endeavor to promote those conditions that will enable the pursuit of cross-national happiness. And that's very powerful. And likewise, in the Constitution, we have many other articles that actually articulates very well, captures the four pillars of GNH. Now, how do we translate that into actual development plans? I'm sure many of our friends here in Bhutanese, we have been doing a lot of soul searching on our, what is the next level of development that we need to take. While GNH has served us, will continue to serve, but also now we need to also look at GDP growth. So therefore, in the 13th five-year plan, economic transformation is the key focus. And as part of it, government has recently launched 21st Century Economic Roadmap. With all these, we still keep our promise, our values, and we are still grounded by our pillars of GNH. So therefore, we are quite actually not living the past and moving into the future. What has grounded us, we're continuing, and we will in the future as well. And one of the most, again, inspiring thing is His Majesty the King's vision of Gelfun Mindfulness City, which is the expression of this path. And it is not just a smart city or economic zone, it is going to be a gateway of values. A place where prosperity and purpose meet, designed to carry Bhutan's unique development legacy into the future, blending tradition, technology, and well-being for the region and the world. I would like to also touch upon, while at the government setting, we have all these policies and development plans, how do we work very closely with the CSOs, like Tarayana and like many other CSOs. And I was particularly very humbled when Her Majesty's address, how Tarayana over past 2 decades have brought the GNH practicality on the grassroots, and it has really done so. And I have personally experienced, because my ministry looks after the entrepreneurship, small businesses, it has been very easy for me. So whenever I go and visit a village and I talk to them, some products coming out, I say, how did you start? It was Tarayana supported. And it becomes very easy for us to pick up from there and build on. So that is again working in harmony, not just in institution alone, but cross, institution, government vis-a-vis civil society organizations. So therefore, I would just want to stop here without further ado. Thank you very much, and I look forward to more discussion.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, Tasha. I think we'll move in straight into the next Tasha Tong. If you could share some of your experiences, thoughts on the very purpose of development. Because oftentimes development for itself, I think, has no meaning. Why development is necessary is something that is also the question that boggles a lot of minds. And if it didn't, then we aren't on the right path somewhere. So, Tasha, you've been instrumental, the institution also has been institutional to bring up well-endowed citizens, and both in your current responsibility as well as in your previous, you were working to achieve those quite a bit, Las.
Yes, thank you, La. With deepest reverence, admiration and gratitude to Your Majesty for your leadership and all the amazing work that Tarayana Foundation is doing. I am very thankful and honored to share a few thoughts at this panel. Just a little caveat. Through much of my professional life, I've been more an administrator than anything else. So whatever I share today, given the design of the panel, is more of an introspection, more personal views, and also thoughts from my own lived experience as an individual. Last year, on 17 December, during our National Day, His Majesty, in his royal address, gave the bureaucracy 10 years more to transform itself into an enlightened and an entrepreneurial entity, institution. I thought that was such a powerful proposition or a command, very much in keeping with the times we're living through. So I reflect a lot upon what does enlightened mean, what does entrepreneurial mean. And even for my opening remarks, I would like to draw from that. To me, that is something very pragmatic, that is something intergenerational, and I think very much in keeping with the theme of this conference. So with that in mind, I would like to look at development from the way we generally see development, in terms of the physical, in terms of the tangible, in terms of the policies, the infrastructure that we build, the health, education, etc., etc. And then how do we relate it to individual growth? How do we relate that to human flourishing? So I would like to share three initial thoughts. Firstly, when we talk about development, particularly in the context of GNH, sufficiency comes to mind. As Her Majesty mentioned in her royal address, I think as a human entity, none of us will be happy if we are dependent. So I think first and foremost, sufficiency needs to be established. And we all know the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that is where I think foundations like Tarayana are doing amazing work to ensure sufficiency, to ensure that people across the country attain sufficiency so that they transition from being dependent into being empowered to live independent lives. And I think that's, as Her Majesty mentioned, tremendously powerful. Secondly, I would like to share about balance. I think development, whether we talk in terms of the policies, the infrastructure, the tangible, the visible, or we talk about the inner engineering aspect of it, I think it's all about balance. And maybe perhaps because we are seated in this amazing Tunkadzong Founders Hall, I think we can draw from this very institution, from this very structure, what balance could look like. From the environment in which this institution is built, to the balance that is brought in terms of the architectural grandeur of this building, the dome, with all the modern amenities, the technologies that is there, the latest state-of-the-art facilities, the beautiful paintings, the woodwork, to creating this very platform on which we discuss balance. So I think, I thought this is a powerful example of what balance could mean in terms of development. And thirdly, I would like to briefly share about collective well-being. Now, before I became the Vice Chancellor, I was working at the Royal Institute for Governance and Strategic Studies in Phensuling, doing a lot of leadership programs. And of course, one thing I realized, I'll always remain a student of leadership. But in leadership, as much as in spirituality, I think real selflessness, real sacrifice, real leadership is really about living your life for others. So I thought in terms of what development really means, I think it's really about how we look after each other, how we grow into enlightened entities that we're all capable of, so that we care as much about others as we care about ourselves, if not more about others. So I thought this collective well-being, the intention and the willingness, the intuition to be of service to somebody else, to bring a smile on somebody else's face, I thought that should be about development, especially looking at the human aspect of development. Thank you.
Thank you, Tashu. And I think you've covered quite a bit of, you've also strengthened what Devanshi had earlier also mentioned. So we're kind of beginning to see a pattern here, Your Majesty, of more people needing to be selfless in their service in order to create a better society, better lived experiences for everyone. So that's sort of something that's coming quite strong. Devanshi, do you want to add anything further to what you had earlier? Yeah, we'll open. Okay, so we will go in for one round of questions from the audience. I think there are mics around. I would request volunteers. If there are any questions to any individual panelists, in general, please specify so that we can address it directly. But we're not going to give you all of the time. I still need to dig a little deeper so that they unpack what they know. Their truths cannot necessarily be summarized in 3 or 4 minutes. So that was unfair on my part to ask them to do that. So any questions from the audience? That's interesting. Either you're bedazzled by all of the brilliant thoughts out here, or is it too early to start the questions? Okay, maybe, yes, mic here, please.
Hello? Apologise for that. My name's John Crawford of Glasgow, and I'm very interested in the comment that was made about the mindfulness city as a gateway of values. And I wonder if you could expand on that, because I sense it's a two-way gateway. A gateway of values from outside the country and a gateway from values inside the country to the outside. Could you maybe explain a little bit more how that might work?
If you don't mind, maybe we'll take a few more questions together and then. So, any other questions? Eager questions? No questions? Okay, this.
Hello. Thank you. My name's Harry Cockrell from Hong Kong. My question is really directed to Givenchy. I had the pleasure of being in Oroville for Mother's birthday in February together with my wife. It was a wonderful experience that we had, but it's something that started in the 1920s. And today, it's only limited to Oroville in Pondicherry. With such a fabulous experiment and development, is way beyond an experiment. How do you take this one physical location?
Okay, the third question. Okay. Yeah. I think Christina had a question, is it? Okay, and Dr. John, I think there's a presentation for tomorrow morning. They'll talk a little bit more detail about the GMC, the Gallifeu Mindfulness City. Mr. Rapsel, the head of comms from that team, he's coming from the core team. He will be here to make that presentation. So I don't know whether you want to be patient or you want to hear it from not the head of the comms persons.
Okay, I have a mic. Christina Stevens with Evolution Love Corp. In terms of education, which is like the basis, it's the key of GNH, this understanding. And the spiritual component, I live in the United States, and unfortunately that's a component that is just not in the educational system. But is there a plan, or can we make a plan to get this out into the world, because it's just not happening, and it's so vital in the beyond when we leave here. If I may be of service, whatever, but I would love to begin working on this. It's key.
Thank you, Christina, for that question and also the offer. Maybe anyone for the education one, would you like to attempt? Tarsong Tandem. There's one more question? I thought we were going to cap it. Any burning question? Oh, Sneha wanted one question. Sneha wants a question. This is Sneha's show and she wants a question. Okay.
Okay, the question that, yes, that how do we translate the meaning of development for the youth? Because when they come out of college or schools, generally the idea is to jobs and then the career path, which is a linear path. But in that process, a lot of other dimensions of life are, and sometimes meaning of development is just more infrastructure and more income and more consumption. So how do we inculcate actually the meaning of development in the youth?
Thank you, Sneha, for that question. The Oroville question, if you want to answer that.
Thank you for the question. Oroville was officially founded in 1968 with little children coming from more than 120 nations and putting a handful of soil in the urn. And at that time there was also a UNESCO ratified document that said that this is, something for humanity as a whole. This is an attempt which is for humanity as a whole. And it was quite amazing at that time for nations across the world to accept the building of a city with the divine at the heart and center of it. It's a question that you receive in Oroville very often that, what is your impact on the world? Today we are 3,000 residents from 60 different nationalities. If I include volunteers and employees, 15,000 people. The 15,000 nothing in front of the global population, right? So the question that is often put to us is that, how are you impacting? One part of the answer is that, very actually or structurally, how Oroville has been a pioneer, particularly in the field of sustainability, in the field of education. It has inspired several movements across India, across the world. But I think that's only a surface sort of an answer. I think the deeper thing of what is being attempted in the form of Oroville, or even in the form of the mindfulness city that is coming about, it's a way to say that if it can happen here, then it can happen anywhere in the world. And in Oroville, it is not easy. I mean, you have a husband and a wife, and there's a whole lot of disagreement between two people. You have people from 60 different nationalities, 60 different value systems to come and agree that, this is how we would like to do ideal education. Is a very, very difficult and a mammoth task. So it's a bit like, in India we call it a collective yajna. It's like, we do a havan. So it's like a collective yajna where people from across the world are participating to light a collective fire. That's why it's called the City of Dawn. And Oroville in many ways is much more about evolution than for scale. I think Her Majesty had also mentioned in her speech that scaling will not mean that you take one thing and you scale it up. It will mean amplification, right? So in Oroville, what is being attempted is how can we evolve even if we're doing it at a very small scale, at a very small level, how can we evolve it to the next level, to the best of our capacity, to the best of our possibility? And it is quite a difficult task. I mean, I work in education. It's very difficult. One is, yes, of course, all of us who are working, we have a certain vision of how new education is meant to be. But to actually live it, to embody it as a collective, is a very, very mammoth task. So the attempt in Oroville is in the direction of evolution, but certainly there are several attempts to sort of make the bridge between Oroville and the rest of the world. One of the works is the works that, for instance, I do. We hold an online community of seekers who don't want to leave life to become a sannyasi or to become a monk, but who want to live an ordinary life. But within their ordinary life, they want meaning, they want purpose, they want spiritual progress. So how do you enable that? Now with that as an intention, we've created a community. It's an online community. We are trying to take out the wisdom of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, the founders of Oroville, to the world in easy, simple, experiential, transformative ways. That every dimension of life, for instance, art can be for its own sake, and art can also be very profane, but art can also be something very sacred. So in any dimension of life, one can bring out spirituality. That is what we are trying to do in our humble way. You also mentioned about, spiritual education sort of reaching out, and that's what we are attempting to do in the institute that we hold. Again, it's a small and a humble attempt. I'm not claiming that, but the attempt is there, the fire is there, and I feel when the fire is there, it will ignite. It's a bit like the 100-monkey experiment. I know some scientists doubt the efficacy of the 100-monkey experiment, but according to the 100-monkey experiments, if 100 monkeys on an island change, then somehow the monkeys all over the world change. So, many times people come to Auroville, they think it's an utopia. It's not an utopia. Mother called it, it's a laboratory of all the difficulties of the world. So we are the 100 monkeys. We're not here to build Auroville. It's a bit like a rat in an experiment. And that experiment is the light that will eventually ignite the light in the world. It is with that hope that the experiment is being done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the good, interaction, explaining a little bit more about Auroville. I think we still haven't answered the linearity of, the realities that our youth face when they come out of our system with education as the founding block. Any attempts?
It's a wonderful stay. Thank you very much for enlightening questions. And it's really very challenging even to us, for our monks and for our Central Monastic Body, because we feel that Central Monastic Body is one of the oldest institutions, has a greatest responsibility in serving this youth, how to bring inner development, especially in the school time, especially after school time, after colleges. And that is, I think, not a government's job. Our university has been always advising to us, and Central Body has started some of the services, like example, like Dharma talk, Dharma counseling, 37 yoga instructions, practices to the people, and sometimes we also go to schools, give teachings. And I know it's not sufficient, but still we find different innovative ideas how to interact with the younger generations, with the science, and with the other what called expert agencies to work on that. And I feel that I think it's really very important, especially not only on the spiritual ground, but also in the philosophical ground. The teachings of the Buddha, when you say, it's not only a spiritual or religion, but it's also a philosophy of life. So we do talk of mindfulness. We do talk of many important issues. So this is the one thing which is very important in our country to find out ways to help out. And I will take this question very seriously. And thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Lakembo. I don't know how many of you who are participating here are aware of the fact that in schools we do have lots of different clubs, extracurricular activity clubs, and Tarayana also has school clubs, voluntary school clubs. These are all volunteer members who are experimenting with the feel-good factor of having worked selflessly with some cause or the other. So in school, they're learning through these clubs. It gives them the opportunities to explore selfless service, and whether they're cut out for that or not. We have more than 6,000 student members in that voluntary club. And I think in small ways like this, if they are already introduced to the philosophy of life, we don't tell them it's that, but that is what makes life worth living. And so when they discover it, self-discovery is a big factor. When they discover it for themselves, I think they will automatically find their North Star and stay true to course. So that's sort of, I just wanted to supplement on the education being linear. I think there's nothing linear actually. It's all very, very circular. Circles within circles is how I see it. But okay, I don't know the MC whether we still have a little time for maybe wrap up 3 minutes. I know we're a little over time for the lunch. Maybe lunch will wait just a little bit more. 2 minutes each for your closing thoughts. 5 minutes? Oh, okay, so 5 minutes. 1 minute each, I'm sorry.
Closing remarks is very simple. Be who you are. Be a wonderful person. That's the happiness, that's the inner development. And as others are very equally important as you are. So we live for us, we live together. Thank you.
Just would like to share how I practice the Buddhism deeply embedded in me. I see this principles very much applicable on everyday life. So when I come to the office, I look around, I treat my staff with respect, dignity, regardless of where their level, what level they serve at. And whenever they share their thoughts and ideas, I give a patient hearing and always give the benefit of the doubt that there would be value to it. And this is because I believe in collective wisdom and co-creation. Thank you.
Before I share my concluding remarks, just my 2 cents on education and spirituality. Of course, I'm just into my 6th month as the Vice Chancellor of the Royal University. But I just wanted to share that we do, as Bhutan, as this country that we are, I think we definitely have an upper hand in terms of, sharing ideas surrounding mindfulness, personal growth and transformation, etc., spirituality aspect of things. That having said, we also do have enormous challenges to deal with, to contend with internally. I just wanted to highlight on, my recent visits to the colleges. I came across many college faculty and presidents, basically requesting the university to send them counselors, professional counselors, the younger generation having to deal with a lot of stress related to work or whatever it may be. So I think while we have an upper edge in terms of sharing with the rest of the world, many things around spirituality and personal transformation and growth, I also strongly feel that we need to do a lot of work to put our own house in order first. And particularly with regard to education and spirituality, holistic growth and development, I think this school where we are right now seated, the Trugalpos Institute, this is, I think, a model school, model educational entity where these things are very much taught and learned. So I really encourage you to have a conversation with Tashu Arun Kapoor and his faculty members here to learn more about the Bhutan Baccalaureate program and the holistic education that they provide here. Just my concluding thought, it's about really what development truly means. To me, development should be about having or creating the conditions where people like ourselves around the world have the opportunity to attain sufficiency so that they are not dependent on others, where people like ourselves or our fellow countrymen in the countryside, where we are at peace with ourselves and with others. And finally, development should, to me, also mean really about establishing deep human connections and forging respectful mutual relationship, harmonious relationship with the entire environment around us that supports life. Thank you very much.
I would probably conclude by sort of responding to Sneha's question very briefly. This is actually a very, very real thing in terms of youth. And more youth are finding themselves very dissatisfied with the aims that the society has to offer them. They're feeling very dissatisfied with the way we've, treated our planet. And there is a growing sense of dissatisfaction, but at the same time, as they're young, they have a pressure of building a certain career. So it's a very, very real problem. And the solution that we've been able to sort of work out, as the solution that we see as a way forward, is to blend spirituality and career, and not to see it as two different pathways. Because one of the things that young spiritual seekers face is a certain double life, a certain dilemma. Whether do I take a spiritual path, or do I fulfill all my family responsibilities, all my social responsibilities? But what if work itself became a means of spiritual progress? And this is what I see, that you've done it in your life, and that is possibly the aim for the youth that are really searching for purpose and meaning, to find that depth through the pursuit of career, rather than amongst all the different things that the youth has on their shoulder, where holistic development also, integral development also. One more thing that you need to learn in what they do itself, work as service. I think a lot of us talked about, you mentioned also about education and entrepreneurship. Enlightenment and entrepreneurship. It's a question worth asking, how enlightenment and entrepreneurship can be together. Yesterday when we had the welcome dinner, it was in a restaurant founded by a spiritual master. Usually we see that, spiritual masters, people on the spiritual path, they let go of the material world. And people who walk the path on the material world, they walk the path on the material world for the sake of material fulfillment. But how can the two come together? And maybe career is the route to it. So with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Profound thank you to all the very distinguished speakers on this panel. I was privileged to be your moderator. I don't think I did justice to it within the given time. But if you are attending the rest of the sessions, please make yourselves available for in-depth discussions with others who might have had questions but not had the time to ask. So with that, thank you once again for being part of this. Thank you for a wonderful audience.